So we talked about transportation and sort of the impact of the fast tracks build out. What do you see as the other issues facing your district?
Well, we have a tremendous foreclosure problem in District 3. I don't know if you've seen any of the maps that have been published. There's been a few in the Rocky Mountain News. We're probably second in comparison to Montbello and the Gateway area. And you can certainly see it as I walk throughout the blocks of District 3. I probably run into 1 or 2 foreclosed houses per block. So that just has a tremendous impact on how our neighborhood is perceived, how it's kept up, the impact to the other property owners adjacent to these foreclosures. Their property values are going down. So we need to constantly, keep vigilant about that. That is a very big issue because it has such a ripple effect to the whole community. It not only affects those people on the block, but it affects neighborhoods. As you see less attractive housing, what comes a lot of times with the foreclosures is a vandalism on those houses because they're left vacant, they're abandoned homes.
Right.
So we see a growth of graffiti, of broken windows. It looks like, again, the perception of the neighborhood is just running down further and further. So that's a major issue that needs to be turned around, probably as a first priority because it's so devastating to the district.
So then sort of a crime issue as well.
It folds into it
Right.
very quickly. I have a house that's up the hill from me that's foreclosed, been vacant for a long time, was owned by a bank, now it's finally owned by somebody, and it had graffiti all the way around it, on the windows, on the whole walls. And then finally we've got the city to come in and do some mitigation. So now it's a white house with dumpster beige. A little bit of better, but we still got a long ways to go, and that's the effects. Living to a house that's.
So then, what can the city do though about the foreclosure?
Well, I think we can partner. Oh yeah, and I think this office can take a very active role. I've been wanting to work with a lot of the housing nonprofits that do housing counseling. I used to be a housing counselor in the city of Aurora, so I know there's all those programs out there. We just need to really focus on how we can target that resource to District 3. Really have an active role for the housing development corporations that are out there that are doing housing counseling to get people into home ownership. I also think there's a role for maybe some kind of land banking where we can get rehabilitation to some of these homes, at least so that they're looking much better and then can be leased to folks. So we have people in houses. Okay. So I think there's some city resources that we can bring to that. A lot of these housing nonprofits get city funding, federal funding, to do housing counseling. I just think we need to put more of a emphasis on those areas that are really hit hard by foreclosures.
Okay. Another issue that a lot of people have talked about is education. And it doesn't necessarily have a direct sort of, DPS and Denver are in some ways very separate in that. How do you see, do you see the city having a role in schools and doing something about education, or do you see that just sort of keeping those organizations separate?
Well, I think we do need to be partnering together. The success of our schools relates to the success of our neighborhoods, the success of our children, the reduction of crime. So they're not inseparable that way because we'll see them interrelate to each other throughout the whole thing.
Right.
So I think the city can really be a connection to providing those additional support services that the schools may need and or look at funding, like whether it be after school programs, to make sure that kids are in those instead of maybe doing graffiti from 3 to 5. So there's a nice complement that can be done. We also need to be really cognizant of how the schools are working. There was a lot of articles recently of loss of students in Denver Public Schools. And I think in particular we see that in Northwest Denver and Southwest Denver. We're on the border. We're right off of Sheridan. So I do know several families that, yes, their child goes to Jefferson High School in Edgewater or another school here or there. So really need to keep an idea of how many students we're losing to the adjacent suburbs and what we can do to really make those quality schools so that the students stay there. But not only that, is we don't want to have those schools close and those families not have options of where their kids can just walk to school. And I think there's a great concern with the CSAPs. A lot of the Northwest Denver schools and Southwest Denver schools aren't performing that well. And so they may end up being closed, and we need to really take a serious look at that, because that will have a dramatic effect on the neighborhoods. So we can't ignore it. We're not the authority, ultimate authority, a lot of the curriculum, but I think we can be a very strong voice in working together on trying to solve to our mutual ends. You know, we want basically livable communities, and it involves the schools, it involves the city resources to get that there. So that's what kind of our role, I think, can be.
Okay. Is this your first time running for office? Or your first time candidate?
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I was looking at doing an RTD.
Oh, okay. This is your first time actually being on the ballot?
Yes, correct.
And how do you, I mean, you enjoying it? How is
It's very busy. It's interesting to see how the whole process works, and trying to you know, get your message out to folks in the community, let them know who you are, hear from folks in the community too. I think that's the most important thing. We're needing to find out what are the issues as well, so that we can represent the district to our best of our ability. So I think that's an interesting process as well too, because there are so many factors involved with a lot of the issues and challenges, but also the opportunities that we have. So I found it really interesting. It is busy. I'm still working full time, so it's a lot of tug of war.
So you're juggling a lot then at once.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Is there anything else that you want, that we haven't talked about, that you wanted to say to the voters of your district, that
Okay.
particular issues or anything like that?
Well, I think the main thing I like to just present to the voters out there is that I believe that I'm a candidate that is really familiar with a lot of the issues, have been working in neighborhoods for a number of years, used to work with neighborhood resource centers, so I not only know the local issues, but I also have worked with neighborhoods throughout the whole metropolitan area. So I feel I have a good grasp on local issues as well as citywide issues, and have been working on a lot of these problem areas already. And I guess the main thing I like to present is that I feel like we can have some solutions in District 3 that we can start working on right away. That we want to garner as much city support as we can for those, but that we can also start taking the initiative in District 3 to start tackling those problems on foreclosures, graffiti, crime, and economic development. I think we can already start the ball rolling, and that's what I like to do. If I'm elected, is get that ball rolling, roll up the sleeves, and start working on those issues so that we have businesses on Federal Boulevard, and we have Main Street zoning that helps them do their businesses on Federal Boulevard and expand them, as well as make sure that the light rail and transit works for neighborhoods.
Okay. You already cast your ballot?
No, I haven't.
Voted yet? Okay.
No, I haven't. I'm about ready to. I think I want to see how the process works as you drop it over at the drop-off places.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right. You wanted to drop it off as opposed
Right,
to
right.
Because I have heard that the turnout's been relatively low thus far, so I wasn't sure of if what your experience has been sort of out campaigning, if people are engaged in the race or not, or if you get a lot of blank faces or people don't know anything about what's going on.
It's mixed. I would say some folks do.
Okay. Okay. Well, great. Thanks for taking the time to,
Yeah,
to talk to me
appreciate it.
today, and I hope good luck with your campaign.
All right, thanks for interviewing me.
Oh, our pleasure.
Right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.